visually stunning and seemingly the work of incredibly complex engineering. For centuries, believers have claimed that behind every living creature in the universe, there is a master designer. But what if we told you that the ultimate proof against this lies hidden right inside our own bodies? Today, we dismantle the myth of a grand creator by exposing the blatant, chaotic bad designs woven into the very fabric of life. This is the bizarre, unvarnished history of evolution. We will explore the unbelievable flaws within human anatomy, from the glaring blind spot in our eyes to the tangled, inefficient wiring of our brains. We will strip away the magic to reveal the raw science behind the extraordinary abilities of the animal kingdom, looking closely at the chaotic evolution of the giraffe's neck and the chemical weaponry of the bombardier beetle. Diving deeper, we will journey into the microscopic world. We will decode the wondrous biological motors inside our cells and the sprawling DNA code to understand exactly how life became so staggeringly complex without the hand of a creator. We will uncover the truth that from the moment of birth to the simple act of blood clotting, what looks like perfect, peaceful cooperation between our organs is actually a ruthless internal war for survival. And finally, we will deliver powerful scientific rebuttals that completely shatter the pseudoscience of intelligent design. Welcome to a new episode that scientifically dissects the illusion of nature's master plan. This is the Monolith English where truth stands tall. Many argue that the human eye, with its ability to focus more precisely than any camera, is a miracle of design. They ask, could this really have formed by itself through evolution? Science gives a very simple answer. The eye didn't just pop into existence one day. It evolved over millions of years from simple, light-sensitive cells. To prove that this is the result of blind evolution and not an intelligent design, we only need to look at one massive flaw in our eyes. Our photoreceptor cells are wired backwards. For us to see, light must travel past a dense web of nerves and blood vessels before it even reaches the receptors. Not only does this reduce the clarity of our vision, but where these nerves bunch together to exit through the retina to the brain, there are no light-detecting cells at all. This creates a literal blind spot in our vision. If a highly intelligent creator designed this, they would never make such a glaring engineering error. In fact, look at the octopus. Their eyes are wired correctly with no blind spot. The human eye is the ultimate proof that evolution is just a makeshift process, working only with what is available. It sounds wonderful to call the billions of neurons in the brain an engineering marvel, but in reality, it is a tangled, chaotic mess of wiring. Nervous systems expanded rapidly as organisms had to react faster to their environments. To understand this flawed wiring, look no further than the recurrent laryngeal nerve in our neck. This nerve connects the brain to the voice box. A direct route would be just a few inches. Instead, it travels all the way down into the chest, loops under the aortic arch near the heart, and travels all the way back up to the throat. In a giraffe, this same nerve uselessly travels an extra 5 meters. No intelligent engineer would wire a system this poorly. But if we look at evolutionary history, it makes perfect sense. In our fish ancestors, these organs were close to the heart. As the heart moved down into the chest over millions of years of evolution, it simply dragged the nerve down with it. Evolution can only modify existing designs. It cannot start from scratch. When we observe the heart beating tirelessly for a lifetime, it feels like it must have been perfectly calibrated by someone. However, looking at the evolution of the heart from simple muscular tubes to a complex four-chambered pump, we see it was driven by pure survival. The bad design here lies in the coronary arteries that supply blood to the heart itself. Even though the heart pumps gallons of blood, it relies on a very small set of arteries to feed its own muscles. If just one of these gets blocked, there is no backup system and the human dies of a heart attack. A master designer would have provided redundant blood vessels for safety, but evolution simply expanded the available vessels, leaving this fatal limitation. It might seem like the miles of blood vessels spreading through our bodies follow a master plan. The truth is, there is no plan. Blood vessels grow spontaneously in response to the needs of cells. When cells lack oxygen, they release chemicals that trigger the growth of new vessels. The biggest problem with this system arose when humans started walking on 2 legs. Because we evolved from 4-legged creatures, The veins in our legs struggle to pump blood all the way back up to the heart against gravity. This flaw is exactly why humans suffer from varicose veins. We don't see this problem in other four-legged vertebrates because their design matches their lifestyle. When humans stood upright, evolution couldn't redesign the circulatory system from scratch, resulting in this painful defect. Some claim that the opposable thumb, which helps us grasp objects and perform delicate tasks, is a special gift given only to humans. But monkeys and other mammals have them too. A structure originally used for swinging from trees simply became useful for handling tools when we came down to the ground. Proof of our evolutionary past lies in the useless muscles still present in our arms. Take the palmaris longus muscle, for example. About 14% of the human population doesn't even have this muscle, and they suffer no disadvantage. It is only useful for animals that climb trees. If a designer created us, they wouldn't leave useless spare parts inside our bodies. These remnants exist because evolution carries the baggage of our ancestors. The ability to speak, unique to humans, is not magic. It is the result of a slight shift in our vocal tract. But this modification brought a fatal flaw that threatens our very lives. To allow for speech, our larynx dropped lower in the throat, which means food and air now have to cross the same pathway. Because of this single evolutionary compromise, thousands of people choke to death every year when food accidentally enters the windpipe. An intelligent creator would never design a system so inherently dangerous to life. Whales and dolphins, for instance, have entirely separate pathways for breathing and eating. This human flaw clearly shows that evolution often compromises one function to achieve another. Skin sensors that detect pain and temperature are hailed as a brilliant safety system. But these signals frequently confuse the brain, causing a phenomenon called referred pain. For example, during a heart attack, a person might feel intense pain in their left arm or jaw, rather than the heart itself. This happens because our nerve pathways are tangled and poorly separated. An intelligent designer would have installed a clear, direct alarm system for every organ. But because evolution is a step-by-step process where new nerves branch out from old ones, the wiring gets crossed, leading to this dangerous confusion. Those who ask how the perfect balance of stomach acids and digestive enzymes could have formed by chance should take a look at the appendix. In our plant-eating ancestors, the appendix was a large, active organ used to digest tough cellulose. Today, it is completely useless to us. Worse than being useless, if it gets infected and bursts, it can be fatal. Why would an intelligent designer place a dangerous, unnecessary ticking time bomb inside the human body? The appendix is nothing but a piece of evolutionary garbage that hasn't been completely thrown away yet. It is true that if the kidneys, which perform ultra-complex filtration, fail, a human will die. But these complex kidneys evolved from simple, primitive waste disposal cells. When life moved to land, conserving water became a matter of survival, forcing this filtration system to become incredibly complex. The flaw in this design is that our kidneys struggle to process certain waste minerals. This is what causes kidney stones. Designing a biological pipe that constantly clogs with stones is terrible engineering. This is simply the result of evolution trying to flush out waste using the limited biological tools it had available. Finally, the body's ability to balance using fluid inside the inner ear might seem like a brilliant mechanism. But its greatest flaw is motion sickness. When you read in a moving car, your eyes tell your brain that you are sitting still, but the fluid in your ears tells your brain you are moving. The brain cannot resolve this conflict. Instead, it concludes that the only logical explanation for these mixed signals is that you have been poisoned. Its immediate reaction? It makes you want to vomit to expel the imaginary toxin. If an intelligent creator made us, they wouldn't design a brain that gets so easily confused by a simple mismatch of signals. This proves that the human body, adapted over millions of years just for walking, is still struggling to catch up with the sudden invention of mechanical transport. Many marvel at the giraffe's anatomy, assuming its powerful heart to pump blood up its long neck and the special valves preventing a rush of blood to the head when it stoops were designed simultaneously. Science, however, explains this differently. These features didn't appear at once but evolved over millions of years. As the neck lengthened, the heart and blood vessels adapted. The clearest proof that this is evolution, not intelligent design, lies in its biggest flaw, the recurrent laryngeal nerve. This nerve, which connects the brain to the voice box, should only need to travel about 2 inches. Instead, it travels all the way down the giraffe's neck, loops around a major heart artery in the chest, and then travels all the way back up to the throat, a completely unnecessary detour of about 5 meters. No intelligent engineer would commit such a massive error. This happened because in our fish ancestors, these organs were close to the heart. As the giraffe's neck extended through evolution, the nerve was simply dragged along with it. This isn't intelligent design. It's just evolution makeshift adaptation from an existing blueprint. Believers often argue that the woodpecker's tongue, which wraps around its skull to protect its brain from the immense impact of pecking, is a shock absorber designed by an intelligent creator. But this structure didn't appear overnight. The woodpecker's tongue is actually part of its hyoid bone structure. As the tongue lengthened to probe for food, this bone structure also extended, eventually wrapping around the skull. To those who call this a miracle, consider this. Despite this protection, woodpeckers still suffer minor brain damage from the constant impact. Evolution doesn't provide a perfect system. It only provides one that allows the creature to just barely survive. An engineer would have designed a far safer protective mechanism for the brain. Another common argument is about the bombardier beetle, which mixes 2 chemicals inside its body in precise quantities to spray a hot, noxious liquid at its enemies. Believers claim this system couldn't have evolved step by step because a slight miscalculation would make the beetle explode. This is flawed logic because the chemicals themselves aren't that immediately explosive. Other related beetles use these same chemicals for defense without any explosions. Evolution simply developed the ability to store these pre-existing chemicals in a special chamber and then use enzymes to catalyze the reaction, heating it up. This is not irreducible complexity, but rather evolution making a simple existing system more complex over time. The fact that these beetles sometimes burn themselves with their own spray is further proof that this is not a flawless design. Many consider the bat's ability to navigate in the dark using echolocation to be high-tech engineering. But science views it as a development of their sense of hearing. Long before bats, other small creatures like shrews used simple clicks to understand their surroundings. Evolution simply refined this ability in bats. A significant flaw in this system is that certain moths, like tiger moths, have evolved the ability to jam the bat's sonar signals. A designer would have surely given bats a foolproof system, but because of the evolutionary arms race in nature, another creature has found a way to defeat the bat's technology. The octopus's ability to change its color and pattern to match its surroundings in an instant is not hidden technology, but a development of skin cells and nervous systems. The most interesting fact is that these color-changing octopuses are actually colorblind. They cannot distinguish colors. They make these changes by detecting the intensity of light around them. An intelligent designer would have given a creature with the ability to change color the ability to see color as well. This adaptation is just a trick evolution plays using the available cells. Many view the magnetic compass that allows birds to migrate thousands of kilometers precisely as a divine gift. Science, however, sees it as a special property of certain proteins called cryptochromes and iron-containing cells that detect the Earth's magnetic field. The major flaw here is that this compass isn't very accurate. Thousands of birds get lost during strong winds or other natural disasters. If this were programmed software, such large errors wouldn't occur. Evolution only gives these birds a rough idea needed for survival. Who taught bees to build hexagonal honeycombs, the shape that holds the most honey with the least amount of wax? The answer isn't that bees know geometry, but rather the laws of physics. Bees actually build circular cells. But the heat inside the hive and the bee's body heat soften the wax, and surface tension causes these circles to naturally pull into a hexagonal shape, just like soap bubbles do. An intelligent designer didn't put instructions in the bee's head. Physics did the work. The archerfish, which can accurately shoot down prey outside the water by calculating the refraction of light, is often called a mathematical marvel. But the truth is, these fish are not born with this skill. They learn it through practice and trial and error. If it were an inbuilt program from a designer, they would be able to catch prey from birth. This shows their brain has adapted to cope with this specific situation. Silkworms produce silk through a complex chemical process, not because of a special instruction, but due to a change in their salivary glands. Many worms have the ability to excrete proteins, but evolution refined it in silkworms. This thread is actually a protective shield for the worm itself. It's not a complex chemical process, just simple protein chains. Often, worms die trapped inside these very cocoons. An intelligent designer would have also designed a safe way for them to exit. It is often said that baby turtles running towards the sea immediately after hatching is a pre-programmed software in them. But this is just a reflex action. They have evolved a method to identify the brighter light over the ocean, reflection of starlight and moonlight, and move towards it. The terrible flaw in this is that in modern times, streetlights near beaches confuse them, causing them to move towards roads and land, getting crushed by vehicles. If this were an intelligent design, they would have the knowledge to adapt to changing circumstances. This is a prime example of an old program provided by evolution failing in a new environment. Many ask if the energy-producing motor inside our cells, ATP synthase, could possibly exist without an intelligent creator. Looking at this protein structure spinning like a microscopic machine, anyone might jump to that conclusion. But science tells us this is not a suddenly engineered machine. Each part of ATP synthase evolved from proteins doing entirely different jobs in the cell. For example, its spinning rotor evolved from simple pumps that pushed waste substances out of the cell. The glaring flaw in this design is its extreme fragility. It requires a strict hydrogen ion gradient across the cell membrane to work. If this gradient fluctuates even slightly, the motor completely shuts down. An intelligent engineer wouldn't design a critical power source so heavily dependent on delicate external conditions and so prone to rapid failure. This is not intelligent design. It is a makeshift mechanism evolution cobbled together by repurposing available proteins. Intelligent design advocates often point to the bacterial tail, the flagellum. They claim it is like an outboard motor, and if even one of its 40 parts is missing, it won't work, a concept they call irreducible complexity. However, science has thoroughly debunked this. Bacteria use many of these exact same parts for completely different purposes. For instance, the needle-like syringe, known as the type 3 secretion system, which plague-causing bacteria use to inject toxins, is essentially just a broken-down subassembly of the flagellum. This proves that these parts can exist and function independently. Evolution simply brought these existing pieces together and found a new use for them. Furthermore, if a designer created this, all bacteria would have equally efficient tails. Instead, nature is full of bacteria with varying, often inadequate tails, clear evidence of evolutionary trial and error. Some compare ribosomes, the structures that build proteins inside the cell, to a flawless assembly line in a factory. But this factory is riddled with errors. During the process of reading DNA to manufacture proteins, mistakes happen constantly. This mistranslation results in misfolded proteins, which are the exact root cause of deadly neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's disease. An intelligent engineer would never build a factory so prone to errors that it produces rogue components capable of killing its own owner. In truth, ribosomes are a clumsy remnant of the ancient RNA world from billions of years ago. Because evolution cannot dismantle a system and rebuild it from scratch, it simply continues to use that ancient, imperfect machinery. The cell membrane, which lets necessary nutrients in and expels waste, is often praised as a highly advanced security system. But it is not a constructed wall. If you drop phospholipid molecules into water, they naturally assemble themselves into a layer. This is just basic chemistry and self-assembly, not intelligent design. The biggest flaw in this security system is its vulnerability. Even the simplest of viruses can easily hijack its receptors, trick the membrane, and break inside. A superior security system wouldn't allow itself to be hacked so effortlessly. Evolution provided a necessary chemical envelope for life to survive, but it is far from an impenetrable fortress. Those who argue that the error correction mechanisms during DNA replication are proof of a divine programmer need only look at the existence of cancer. Cancer is, at its core, the catastrophic failure of this designer's repair system. We see this error correction system today only because, over billions of years of brutal survival, Cells that made fewer errors were the ones that lived to reproduce. It was not pre-planned. This biological repair kit frequently makes mistakes, leading to countless genetic diseases. An intelligent designer would never release a critical repair system with such a high probability of lethal failure. Finally, consider apoptosis or programmed cell suicide. It might seem like a miraculous software program where damaged cells politely destroy themselves. In reality, this is a ruthless biological pathway that evolved for the survival of multicellular organisms. Since one rogue cell can destroy the entire body, nature's blunt solution was to kill it. The flaw here is that this system misfires constantly. When it becomes overactive, it kills perfectly healthy cells, leading to diseases like Parkinson's. When it fails to activate, cells that should be destroyed refuse to die, endlessly multiplying to become malignant tumors. If this were a program written by a master coder, it wouldn't crash so catastrophically. It is nothing more than a crude biological adjustment discovered by evolution. Consider the blood clotting process. Believers point to the chain reaction of over 12 protein factors as undeniable proof of intelligent design, claiming that if even one piece is missing, the entire system fails. But science reveals this mechanism didn't just appear out of nowhere. It began with extremely simple proteins, and over millions of years, existing proteins were recruited one by one for new jobs. The greatest flaw here is that this is, in fact, a terrible design. This system is incredibly fragile. If there is even a slight genetic mutation in one of these factors, the human either bleeds to death from a lack of clotting, known as hemophilia, or dies from unnecessary clotting that causes heart attacks and strokes, known as thrombosis. An intelligent engineer would never design such a lethal, hypersensitive chain reaction. Evolution simply made do with the proteins it had, leaving us with a highly flawed, dangerous system. The perfect match between atmospheric oxygen and our lung capacity is often hailed as a master plan. The truth is exactly the opposite. The atmosphere wasn't prepared for us. Our lungs simply evolved to survive in the atmosphere that was available. To understand this design flaw, we only need to climb a high mountain. When oxygen levels drop, our lungs fail to adapt. Furthermore, our lungs are completely incapable of distinguishing between life-giving oxygen and deadly poisons like carbon monoxide. In fact, they readily accept the poison instead. If a master designer created this, they would have equipped the lungs with a discrimination mechanism to filter out toxic gases. We have this fatal limitation strictly because evolution only trained our bodies to breathe the specific air available at sea level. The relationship between plants and pollinating insects is frequently romanticized as a beautiful, designed cooperation. In reality, it is not cooperation at all. It is a ruthless biological arms race known as coevolution. Flowers do not produce nectar out of kindness to insects. They are forcing the insects to spread their pollen. The flaw in this design is its extreme peril. If a plant relies exclusively on one specific species of beetle, and that beetle goes extinct, the plant goes extinct with it. Furthermore, many plants, like certain orchids, completely deceive and manipulate insects without offering any nectar at all. A designer wouldn't create a system of mutually assured destruction and deception. This is merely the result of two species exploiting each other for their own survival. When it comes to human reproduction, the womb is often described as a perfectly designed sanctuary. Those who say this ignore the brutal reality. Pregnancy is actually a biological war between the fetus and the mother's body. The fetus attempts to aggressively extract maximum nutrients, while the mother's body violently resists to protect itself, which is exactly what leads to severe complications like gestational diabetes and high blood pressure. The most glaring bad design of all is the human birth canal. When our ancestors stood upright on two legs, our pelvis narrowed. But simultaneously, our brains evolved, making the infant's head massive. Because of this conflicting evolutionary timeline, childbirth is an agonizing process that has killed millions of women and infants throughout history. An intelligent, compassionate creator would never make the act of giving birth so painful and fraught with the risk of death. Finally, the provision of breast milk for a newborn seems like the ultimate expression of nature's care. But evolutionary biology traces this back to a surprisingly primitive origin: sweat glands. Early egg-laying animals secreted a watery fluid from their skin simply to keep their leathery eggs from drying out, a method the platypus still uses today. Over millions of years, that fluid slowly evolved into nutrient-rich milk. The major flaw in this system is its lack of a safety filter. Deadly viruses and toxins from the mother's body can pass directly through breast milk into the vulnerable infant. If this were an intelligent design, there would be an impenetrable biological filter that allowed only pure nutrients through while blocking all pathogens. Because evolution merely repurposed existing sweat glands, these dangerous risks remain a part of mammalian life. Some ask how the very first life could survive when even the simplest modern organism needs at least 250 genes. But measuring the dawn of life by today's complex cells is a mistake. Long before DNA and proteins existed, life began with simple, self-replicating molecules in what is known as the RNA world. Over billions of years, genes were added one by one. The ultimate proof that this wasn't meticulously designed? The vast majority of our DNA is absolute junk. Useless, broken code and remnants of ancient viruses. No master programmer would fill their software with so much garbage. Those who claim DNA is written by a supreme intelligence fail to understand natural selection. Nature writes this code blindly. Traits that don't fit the environment perish. Only those that aid survival are passed on. If this were a perfect design, why does our genetic code contain instructions for fatal, debilitating diseases? These lethal errors are the undeniable result of random, unguided mutations. Even reproduction, often hailed as a miracle, is astonishingly wasteful. Many species lay thousands of eggs just so one or two might survive the brutal elements. A truly intelligent creator would never design a system that squanders so much energy and life. Look at the breathtaking colors of flowers and birds. They aren't the work of a divine artist painting for human eyes. They are desperate survival tactics driven by sexual selection and the need to attract pollinators. In fact, many flowers display ultraviolet patterns completely invisible to us. Why would an artist paint a masterpiece their audience cannot even see? Nature colors itself only for survival. Consider the human spine. Often praised as an engineering marvel, it is the exact reason so many of us suffer from chronic back pain and slip discs. When our ancestors stood up on two legs, a spine originally designed for a four-legged creature was suddenly forced to bear a massive vertical load. It is a makeshift modification that constantly fails. Similarly, our wisdom teeth are a painful evolutionary hangover. As our jaws shrank over time, these teeth were left with no room to grow, frequently requiring surgical removal. An intelligent designer wouldn't force useless spare parts into a space that is too small. What about our body's daily functions? Our blinking reflex acts as a windshield wiper, yet it often traps debris inside, making the irritation worse. The signals for hunger and thirst frequently misfire, confusing the brain and driving us to overeat. A trait that helped ancient humans survive famine, but causes obesity and diabetes today. And then there is sleep. While resting is necessary, sleeping leaves an animal completely defenseless to predators. Evolution settled for this dangerous compromise simply to save energy. Dolphins evolved the ability to sleep with only half their brain awake. Humans were not given such a superior design. Our senses are equally flawed. Compared to other animals, human olfaction is incredibly weak. We carry pseudogenes for smelling, broken codes that worked in our ancestors but are permanently deactivated in us. Why give a creature an ability only to switch it off? The three tiny bones in our middle ear that grant us hearing are actually repurposed jawbones from ancient reptiles. Because of this cobbled-together origin, they are extremely fragile and easily damaged by loud noises, leading to permanent hearing loss. Even our unique fingerprints are not divine ID cards. They evolved simply to give us a better grip on rough surfaces, shaped randomly by conditions in the womb. Those who view immune memory as advanced software ignore its catastrophic errors. Our immune system regularly misidentifies our own healthy cells as enemies, attacking them and causing autoimmune diseases like type 1 diabetes and rheumatoid arthritis. No intelligent engineer would build a security system that actively seeks to assassinate its host. The same unguided chaos applies to our hormones. where the slightest chemical imbalance triggers severe depression. It applies to the placenta, which acts as a massive drain on the mother and carries the risk of fatal hemorrhaging. It applies to our bones, which naturally lose density and crumble as we age due to osteoporosis. Even the packaging of our DNA, tightly coiled inside microscopic cells, is a clumsy biological struggle. When these coils untangle for replication, they frequently snap or knot, causing deadly mutations. Look at the plants. Chlorophyll is often compared to a solar panel, but it is an incredibly inefficient one. It absorbs only a fraction of sunlight, reflecting the green light entirely, which is why leaves appear green. A true master designer would have created black leaves to absorb 100% of the solar spectrum. Evolution simply made do with the proteins it had. Even death reveals the lack of a grand plan. Post-mortem decomposition is not a divine recycling program. It is simply bacteria and fungi seizing a free food source. Energy transfers blindly through nature. Finally, consider human consciousness. It is not a magical soul inserted by a creator. It is an emergent property of billions of firing neurons. If consciousness were a divine gift, why does a physical blow to the brain completely alter a person's identity, memories, and personality? When the brain dies, the consciousness dies with it. Even our emotional tears, unique to humans, are just an evolutionary survival strategy to signal distress and beg for social support. And our cooling system, sweating, is so poorly designed that it flushes out vital water and salts, frequently leading to dehydration and death. From the molecular motors in our cells to the thoughts in our minds, there is no master plan, no intelligent design. There is only the brutal, beautiful, and entirely unguided reality of evolution. If this video changed how you view the natural world, please like and share it to help spread the truth of science. Subscribe to the Monolith English and hit the bell icon so you never miss our next documentary.